What a day. The national left-wing media exploiting our highly polarized political atmosphere while attacking the Florida Republican gubernatorial nominee, Congressman Ron DeSantis. Media outlets going after DeSantis for using a word they deemed inappropriate. And yes, for being endorsed by President Trump. They didn't talk so much about that, but that is the powerful motivation within all of this drama. No more egregious example than The Hill. The Hill wrote this headline, which reads, DeSantis, Florida voters shouldn't monkey this up by voting for Gillum. The problem is, DeSantis didn't say that. He didn't say anything close to that. You want to know how I know? Well, listen to what he actually said.
We've got to work hard to make sure that we continue Florida going in a good direction. Let's build off the success we've had on Governor Scott. The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by trying to embrace a socialist agenda with huge tax increases and bankrupting the state.
Wow, he was talking about policies. The left doesn't like President Trump, so today they made it clear what they think of DeSantis. They ignored the meaning of his words and their usage. DeSantis made it absolutely clear that he was referring to the socialist policies that he believes would destroy Florida's exceptional economic prosperity and progress under this president. DeSantis was talking about policy and ideas for which you would think the left-wing national media should credit him rather than attack him. But that would be politically and strategically inconvenient to their ends. That leads us to tonight's poll question. Do you think the national left-wing media is largely responsible for creating and fostering the current toxic political environment? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Joining us tonight, James Freeman. He's the assistant editor at the Wall Street Journal, Fox Business contributor. He is the co-author of the highly successful new book, Borrowed Time, 2 Centuries of Booms, Busts, and Bailouts at Cities. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Lou. Great to be here.
A wordsmith, as well as so many other matters of distinction and repute.
Thank you, sir.
Did I miss something? A verb, monkey this up. What in the world seems to be the problem here?
Well, I think he's completely accurate if he's saying that socialist policies will lead to higher taxes and big spending in the state of Florida. In fact, I think his opponent said that on your sister network today. So, and obviously, the history of socialism around the world, it's hard to think of epithets that would be too harsh to describe it, isn't it? I mean, you talk about the misery that's been inflicted over the last century by socialism.
You know, but no discussion of the balance that's at stake here. The socialism versus free enterprise capitalism. Right. Socialism versus a constitutional republic. The idea that that these two men, they're going to have a contest here that's truly about ideas.
Yes,
but the national left-wing media wants to join the fight early and have a scorched earth policy and make it, oh my God, about race.
Well, I hope it is about ideas, because one thing we saw in 2016 was Bernie Sanders, I think because people didn't take him seriously, was not treated as a serious candidate, was not given the normal scrutiny, and his polls were always pretty good. I think in this race, I would hope that voters would get a real discussion of the policy differences between the two candidates.
I've got some good news for you. In this race, the Democratic National Committee will not have a lot of influence on Gillum's results, and he will be freed of at least a corrupt political organization that betrayed Bernie Sanders, who, by the way, didn't seem to mind a bit being betrayed.
He has a funny relationship with the Democratic Party, doesn't he? Which I think to date, I still don't think he's joined.
He's a forgiving man.
And yet he's arguably the most influential person in their party, which is frightening.
So let's get to the facts, and that is 4.2% GDP growth. That's not the new normal that President Obama promised us. And we talk about socialism. What about Venezuela? How's that going?
Yeah.
What is the contest here? The lowest unemployment rates for minorities in this country in our history, and the best they can do is try to turn it into a scorched earth campaign for Gillum in Florida. Who knows what's going to happen in the other states?
Yeah, it's exciting to see what happens when the U.S. economy once again moves toward the opposite of socialism, less direction from Washington. We thought that second quarter was great when the first number came out, 4.1%. Turns out it was even a little greater, 4.2%. And you get beneath the headline, and it's bigger business investment. And this is exactly what the White House wanted with the tax cut. This was the whole theory behind it, is you lower tax rates and you get more business investment that makes workers more productive. They can earn more money. And it's happening.
It's happening because of strong, bright leadership provided by this president. Is that a correct assessment, or would you like to use more big abstractions?
No, I mean, I think, we can talk about his manner and lots of maybe don't agree on the trade stuff, but
a damn thing to do with
on
his
that,
ideas do.
On the tax issue, he's been right on. This is a really fundamental reform.
Really? And how about deregulation?
Yes,
how about creating a business-friendly environment? How about delivering prosperity for all Americans? How about moving ahead with restoring manufacturing? Everybody was, I think the Journal was among them, talking about outsourcing was so important to being competitive internationally. Well, it turns out that's untrue, isn't it? At least to this point.
I think what's really working is what you've seen with President Trump is he's gotten phenomenal results reducing the burden of government in the United States. I think he should appreciate you get the same great results when you do that across our borders. And I'm...
That's bull, because you've had a 50-year experiment that has resulted in reducing economic growth, James, you know this, by trillions of dollars.
I think he has largely solved the competitive problem. No, I think the
so you want to acknowledge that trade deficits cut into the national savings rate, that also they reduce the rate of economic growth. You won't acknowledge that?
No, they don't. Trade deficits don't make us poor. They don't
say they made us
shrink
poor.
Our economy.
And I didn't say they. Oh, yes, they do shrink our economy. They reduce our economic growth. You know and you understand the relationship between the national savings rate and economic growth. It is an absolute truism.
Well, I think what we've seen is many periods, including during the Reagan years when we had big trade deficits and economic growth. I think we can have both. But look, I'm happy we're heading toward a resolution on this North American deal, and I think Canada's going to come in, and that's good news for everybody.
Which candidate? I
think it's not a perfect deal, but it could be a lot worse, and we should have a deal soon.
So let me see. You don't believe in balanced trade relationships?
I think people ought to buy the stuff they want, and sometimes they're going to buy more from one country than another, and sometimes you're going to trade pieces of paper for stuff, and that's fine.
You're a left-winger. You're basically saying open borders and the hell with sovereignty. I mean, that's a wonderful attitude.
No,
I would stop.
No.
Buy his book anyway. You got to buy his book.